What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You guys already know what it is. It's draft season all year long, and today we are going to be taking a look at the last 5 NFL drafts, and we're going to be ranking all of the quarterbacks taken in the first round of those last 5 drafts. Now, I am not including the most recent draft, the 2023 NFL draft, just because these guys haven't even played a snap, so it's not going to be fair to rank them in a list amongst the rest of these guys. So we are starting from 2018 all the way up until the 2022 NFL draft, and ranking them based on their performance. So, first off here with Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker Mayfield, for what it is, I think was solid. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because he went to a dumpster fire organization in the Cleveland Browns and had little to no chance to succeed, but did what he could and really turned the franchise around and has really allowed them, has been that trampoline to get them to where they are today, even though he's still not the quarterback for the team. Now, has still managed to find starting opportunities with the Panthers, with the Rams, and now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, years after he's been drafted and off of his original team. So for Baker Mayfield, although he's not living up to the expectations of the #1 overall draft pick, I am going to put him at C right now. I think he's just been average, and I think really it's his draft position as a #1 overall pick is what gets him these opportunities time and again, even here in 2023 with the Buccaneers. So I don't think he's bad, but I also don't think that he has lived up to the hype of the #1 overall pick, let alone a first-round pick in general. But again, very tough scenario to be thrown into, and I think one that not many people would be able to recover from just because of how bad that organization was. But he has given them hope again. Now, here with Sam Darnold again, a guy who was also put in a not-so-good situation. Not as bad, but, you know, it's the Cleveland Browns. It's hard to be as bad as they were. The New York Jets was not much of a better place. I believe he started off his career with Adam Gase, so that says all you need to know. But Darnold actually had a decent year when he got the starting role for Carolina last year and could potentially, again, be the starter for the 49ers at the beginning of the season. Now, if Brock Purdy is healthy, there's no way he's starting. This is a tough one, right? Because I feel like Darnold and Mayfield have had similar careers in a sense. I do feel like Baker Mayfield has had more success, though, right? I mean, he even got a playoff win when he was with Cleveland over the rival Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is a tough one, and I might change this as the video goes on. I will put him at the top of D right now. I thought about bottom of C, but we'll leave it there for now. Stay tuned for the entire video because things might change. Now, Josh Allen, being the 3rd quarterback taken in this draft, has really exceeded expectations, and this is where the NFL started to begin to look at the quarterback and say, how much upside does this guy have, right? And it really started before with Patrick Mahomes, I would say, because now he is ultimately the best quarterback in the NFL. But Josh Allen was that guy after that, and a lot of people were like, wow, this guy cannot hit a throw. His accuracy is horrendous, but he's got the arm talent. And so can we foresee him being a much better quarterback than the 2 other guys ranked ahead of him? And it happened, right? So that's why we're seeing so many teams take this approach. I think most recently, Anthony Richardson, right, didn't do anything off the chart statistically, but you look at his frame, right, his arm strength, his mobility, the upside is there. So Josh Allen is really starting a new trend. I'm going to put him in A. I would consider him one of the more elite quarterbacks in the NFL. So what a draft pick this was for the Buffalo Bills, and really, they're doing better than any other franchise from the 2018 class that took a quarterback because they got the best one. So, Josh Allen, what a story he has become. Now, funny enough, in this tier list that I'm doing, Josh Rosen is not here. That's just how shit he is. So, if Josh Rosen was here, I would probably make one below F just because he was that bad. To think that he said that there were 9 mistakes made ahead of him and then had that for a career, I would say that myself included and all of you guys watching have probably had the same career as Josh Rosen. So congratulations, guys. You've done what a former first-round NFL quarterback did. Now, we're moving on to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, now, although he has been plagued with injury throughout his career, I'm going to put him in A, right? Former league MVP that season, just did something that no one has ever seen in the NFL before. And although it didn't end the way that they wanted to, right? They got first round exit, or technically second round because they had a first round bye, but a 14-2 campaign, And that season, Lamar Jackson was near unstoppable up until that point. But what a pick that was, right? And to think that NFL scouts were like, oh, yeah, try and do some drills at running back or wide receiver for us. I think it was just mad disrespectful, okay? I understand that he wasn't the purest passer coming out of the draft, but my God, I mean, this dude won the Heisman Trophy, and they were asking him to do that. That is just mad disrespectful. So for him to come into the league, right, win that MVP, and still be one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league, with little to no wide receiver help, put that in mind as well, is just amazing, really. And considering that he was the last pick in the first round of that draft too, and the guys that we mentioned went before him, is just insane. But I will put him below Allen though, just because Allen has had slightly more playoff success and I think has been more consistent health-wise as well. I am factoring that in because I think one of the biggest abilities and one of the best abilities is availability, right? So because Lamar Jackson isn't always there, right? And I know recency bias does have to play a part in it because he didn't play a lot of last season as well. That does factor in, but don't get me wrong, right? If you wanted to interchange the rankings of these QBs, I would have no issue with that. But considering that he was a former league MVP, I think he has to be in the consideration of the elite category. Moving on, and also, right, these guys are not down here because they were either drafted before 2018 or they were not a first-round pick in this time period. So some of these guys will be left out from these respective draft classes because of where they were drafted. Here we're moving on to 2019. Now the first overall pick, former Heisman Trophy winner Kyler Murray. It's been an interesting road for him, right? And a lot of people are knocking on him because of his height and can he even see over the offensive line, which is another conversation that we had this past draft in the 2023 draft with Bryce Young. A lot of question marks surrounding that. And the reason why that's a concern for many teams is because you can't teach height, right? You can teach a guy to be more accurate with the football, make better reads, but you can't teach a guy to grow taller, right? And so those factors that are not changeable, that's what scares some teams away. But Kyler Murray, right, and it's tough because like a lot of these other guys taken in really high draft positions, you're not in a great spot, and sometimes you don't have great coaching. And although Cliff Kingsbury did have slight success in the league as a head coach, I never thought that he was a fit for the NFL. And really, I think if anyone agreed with me during the time of that hiring, I think we can all say that we were right about that. It's just the college-style offense didn't really match the NFL, and I really think that that hurt the development of Kyler Murray. I think if he were to play in a more pro-style offense and something that fits the more modern-day NFL, I think he would have more success, but at this point, it just hasn't looked good. I do think he has been better than Baker Mayfield, though, so we will put him at C. It's unfortunate because a super talented player was even drafted in the top 10 of the MLB draft, so again, super talented guy. His career is not over by any means. Is still the starting quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, but I don't think he's been anything more than average in his career. Daniel Jones, now he had his best year statistically this past season and even got himself a win over the Minnesota Vikings in the wild card round of the playoffs, right? So he got himself a $40 million contract. Things are looking up for him and the Giants. However, his career, I think, also has just been very average per se. I don't think he was ever worth taking in the top 10, and I understand they needed a quarterback, but wow, I mean, it's interesting because they declined his fifth-year option and ended up playing good enough to get himself the next contract. So it's just interesting how that all unfolded, right? If it weren't for last year, probably consider putting this guy in D, maybe even F. But because of the recent success, it's reasonable to say that he is better. So this is a tough one, right? And I think this one can be interchangeable as well between Baker and Daniel Jones. This is a real tough one. I think, okay, when we look at the years cumulatively, I think Baker has had more average years than Daniel Jones does. Because, I mean, if you break it down to playoff success, right, it's relatively the same. And, I mean, Daniel Jones just had some really, really down years where, like, this team would win maybe 5-6 games. Baker, slightly more, right? 7-8 wins. So I think just because of that slight more success, that doesn't even flow off the tongue, right? I don't know what I'm saying. But Baker Mayfield has had more success than Daniel Jones when it's all said and done. So I'm going to leave it at that. That might be a little controversial for some of you guys. If you guys want to put him ahead, I wouldn't argue against that either. It's that close to me, in my opinion. I mean, does it really matter? We're battling over who's better in the average category. Like, not like that matters. Okay, next, Joe Burrow. I'm gonna put him straight into the elite category. Now, also, we are missing another quarterback from the 2019 draft class. Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. I really liked him coming out of college. It's just so unfortunate how everything happened. But yes, he was another quarterback who was talented enough to be taken in the first round of that draft. So rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. And as we move on to the 2020 NFL draft, this is the COVID year, very unique NFL draft in Roger Goodell's basement. We move on to Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow had that breakout season with the 2019 LSU Tigers, one of the greatest, if not the greatest college football team of all time, and earned himself the #1 overall pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. And really, I feel like at this point deserves to be the top quarterback at this list. Is the only quarterback so far to take his team to a Super Bowl, and is just one of the most composed, accurate, and one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league right now. So Joe Burrow, I mean, everyone would take Joe Burrow if they could. I don't think the Chiefs would because they have the best quarterback in the league, but you could argue that Joe Burrow is number 2 in the entire league. He's just that good. So, I mean, Joe Burrow is a dream quarterback prospect at this point. I don't know what else to say, right? If you watch the NFL, you know that this dude is an absolute dog, and really nothing phases this guy. So, easy to say that he is one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, and I would say is the best quarterback, maybe on this entire list when it's all said and done as well. Now, Tua's an interesting one. This is another guy that's been dealing with a lot of injury throughout his career, and even this most recent season when he suffered 3 concussions. I mean, how scary was that? I mean, I know a lot of jokes get thrown around about that, right? But it is scary, right, that he's unable to stay healthy and he's dealing with concussions as severe as it has been. But nonetheless, I think he's been an all right quarterback. Now, see, this is where it gets controversial. Blah, I can't speak. This is where it gets controversial. Like, do I think that he's had a better career so far than Kyler Murray, right? And like recency bias too, right? Because Tua actually had a pretty decent year statistically last year, and when you watch him too, I mean, had that amazing comeback game against the Ravens, so you know he has the ability to be great, but his inability to stay on the field, right, is just been a big roadblock towards his consistency throughout his career. Wow. This is an interesting one. It's a tough one too, in my opinion. I'm going to say, oh man, this is tough. Okay. I think for now, I think I'm going to put Tua here. And like the gap between these two guys, Baker Mayfield and Tua, is large. But I do think that Kyler Murray has had more success in his career than Tua has. And also, again, health is playing a factor in this because your availability is your best ability at the end of the day, in my opinion, right? I mean, if you're not on the field, it doesn't mean anything. So it's tough. And of course, Kyler Murray has another year under his belt as well, where Tua played half a season in his rookie year as well. So it's a tough one. Again, very controversial list, I think, at the moment. Justin Herbert. Okay. So, I don't know. Call me a hater. I'm going to put Justin Herbert at B. Now, when you take a look at Justin Herbert, right, this is an ideal quarterback. You take a look at his frame. You take a look at his elite level arm strength. You could argue that he has the best arm in the league. His mobility, his IQ, he's got it all. He's the full package. He's a good height as well, good weight. But the thing with Justin Herbert so far, right, is he hasn't had a good offensive coordinator. Let's make that clear, right? Joe Lombardi, not a good offensive coordinator. But, you know, we're not making excuses for guys like Baker. We're not making excuses for guys like Darnold, who were put in even worse situations than Herbert is. And it is what it is. I mean, he hasn't had any playoff success. And I think it would have made a difference, right, if he was able to pull off on top over Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars last year, because they choked miserably. But until I see more success in terms of wins, right, I think that's when we can put him over the top, because there's something about guys that have the ability to win. And I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday, right, where it's like Eli Manning was always an average quarterback, but when you needed him to play at the highest level of football, when it was required, he did it. And that's why he has 2 Super Bowls at the end of the day. Justin Herbert still needs to bring that factor to his game for me to put him at the elite level. Now, you might be saying, okay, well, Lamar Jackson doesn't have any significant playoff wins in his career. But again, we talked about how he has an MVP as well, and I think that's the big difference maker, where I put him as an elite quarterback in terms of this tier list. So Justin Herbert, look, I think he's a phenomenal quarterback, and with the right coaching, I think can be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But we haven't seen it yet, and I'm not going to project things to happen. So right now I am going to leave him at B. But like I said, the traits that you see, it's undeniable that this is an ideal quarterback prospect coming out of the draft. But again, until we see some significant results from him, I can't put him in the same level as these guys, because although these guys have had more opportunities, you feel more confident that you're going to win the game when this guy's at quarterback with you. It is what it is. Y'all can hate me for this, but I'm just being honest about it. Am I putting together the most controversial list so far? Possibly, but I believe in this. So, okay, anyway, Jordan Love, for now, we're going to put him in F. Has appeared in like 2 games, maybe 3, and just hasn't really gotten his opportunity yet. So, again, depending on how he plays this upcoming season, and if I do this tier list again, he could be in a much different place, but we just don't know enough about him. So, consider this, you're either garbage or we just don't know enough about you, right? I mean, that's plain and simple what it is. Over here, Trevor Lawrence. I think these 2 guys are interchangeable as well. Let's put Lawrence here for now. Okay, now I'm going to do that. Now, Lawrence did beat Herbert in the playoffs, right? But he also did throw like 4 interceptions. Now, came back and had a phenomenal game, and so everyone forgot about that. But this Jaguars team barely made their way into the playoffs, right? And then had a miraculous comeback, which, of course, was led by Trevor Lawrence, so good on him. But I feel like a big reason why this team made the playoffs last year was because the AFC South was an absolute shit show. And, I mean, you could seriously make the argument that in terms of talent, Justin Herbert is a more talented quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. Again, it's interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, you do want to win. I think these 2 guys are interchangeable, right? If you wanted to move Lawrence up here, you could. If you wanted to have Herbert at top. So, again, their careers are still very early on. And so a lot can change. But I think these 2 guys are interchangeable. It is going to be interesting, though, because, like, Lawrence, right, this is his first year in a system with Doug Peterson, who has a reputation as a very good head coach, won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles at QB for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And the year before, I mean, you couldn't have a worse setup for your franchise quarterback, having Urban Meyer as your head coach for the first year, let alone he got fired, like, midway through the season. So, like, for many guys, that would just absolutely stunt their development and could really send them down the wrong path. For Lawrence, it didn't, and he came back and actually had a pretty good season. And I think because, like, him and Tua almost performed similarly and even statistically as well, I think just because he does have that playoff win and has been able to remain healthy is a big reason why I'm going to put him here in the B part of the tier list. But again, these 2 guys are very interchangeable. Again, it's a super debatable topic over there. Zach Wilson, we'll put you above Jordan Love, but we're going to put you in F just because you've played more games. That's the only reason why you're above. Zach Wilson has seen no success in his NFL career and really fooled the entire NFL by his throws at the combine. Now, don't get me wrong, right? He made some pretty cool plays when he was at BYU, but nothing that screamed at you saying, oh my God, yeah, this guy needs to be the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Replaced now by Aaron Rodgers. Now, could still be the franchise quarterback after Aaron leaves, but from what we've seen right now, he sucks. And that's all I'm going to say. Trey Lance, I think we've seen even less of him than we've seen of Jordan Love, so I don't think it's fair to put an analysis on him right now. It's unfortunate because it was his team until he got hurt last year, but for now, he's going to be after Jordan Love just because we don't know enough. Justin Fields, at the moment, okay, now, if he's your breakout candidate for this year, that's fine. I can understand that. But, like, people are overrating this dude. I mean, they're acting like he's like a top 10, top 15 QB, and he's done little to nothing, okay? Rushing yards are great, but you're a quarterback, right? You need to throw. And I understand he hasn't had good weapons his entire time when he's been in Chicago. But, I mean, it is what it is, right? We have to evaluate it off of what we see. Justin Fields really hasn't had any success as a quarterback. I'm going to put him above Darnold right now. And I think if you want to make the argument, we can put him below Daniel Jones just because of his rushing yard success, but I mean, they won 3 games last year. He was hurt for a little bit of time. He's not a pure passer. Justin Fields at a D. Mac Jones, oh wow. That's an interesting one. Has made a Pro Bowl in his career. I don't know if that means anything to anyone anymore. Again, like I said, I think Justin Fields is the more talented quarterback when you compare him to Mac Jones. But I think Mac Jones has had slightly more success, right? And again, like, I know a lot of people want to point at the fact, like, oh, well, he's got arguably the greatest head coach of all time and has done little to nothing with it. I don't care about that, okay? I understand, right? Like, life is unfair. Some guys are put into amazing situations. Some guys are put into horrible situations. But we can only evaluate these guys off of what we've seen them do so far. So if you don't like this, and even I feel uncomfortable doing this, putting Mac Jones above Justin Fields, because who would I rather have? Justin Fields, yeah, for sure. But this tier list isn't based on how talented you are. This tier list is based on how good you've been, how productive you've been, how healthy have you been, all of those things, right? So it's tough. And I think, all of these guys are kind of in the same category in terms of these 3. These 2 have kind of separated themselves. So if you want to put them in B, yeah, it's arguable. But I think there's like a gap. Oh, well, it doesn't make a gap. The imaginary gap right there between Tua and Baker. So that's that. Kenny Pickett, it's still way too early. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put him in F because he did play like half a season last year, 3/4 of a season last year for the Steelers. I mean, it was all right. I'm right now, I'm going to put him right here. And I think the only reason why I do that, I mean, he threw more picks than touchdowns. Like, no one wants that. And I understand he was a rookie, right? He has Matt Canada as his offensive coordinator. But he still has a lot of time. I mean, it was one bad rookie year with a bad offensive coordinator. Maybe the continuity will help him this year. But it just wasn't anything super exciting. Yeah, they won games. But Kenny Pickett was not a huge reason for that. So this is what my tier list looks like. Now, let me take a look and see if I want to revise this in any way. I think this is actually a pretty solid list. I think, like I said, right, guys like Allen, Lamar, interchangeable. Lawrence, Herbert, interchangeable. I think even Tua and Kyler, interchangeable. Maybe even these guys in the B category, right? All of those things I think are up on the table. Again, there is like a gap between Tua and Baker, right? And then again, like guys like Kenny Pickett, it's just still way too early, right? But for the sake of this tier list, we're going to put him somewhere. But yeah, this is what my tier list looks like of the last 5 years of first-round NFL quarterbacks from 2018 to 2022. Let me know how you guys think I did in the comment section below. Let me know what you would change. And again, most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And until then, we will see you guys all later. Peace.